Welcome to another show of About Seniors Talk TV. I'm Victor Oliveira, President of In Our Care Home Care Services for Seniors and the host of this series. When we think of seniors, we think of them as individuals who have contributed to what we enjoy today. Their genuine interest in making a better tomorrow, which we enjoy today. Unfortunately, some don't see an older senior in the same manner. They see them as someone who might be vulnerable, weak, intimidated, unsure, and essentially the perfect victim. As sad as it sounds, it's actually an all too common occurrence. It's unimaginable that someone would target and strategize a scam to defraud an older senior of their savings. But it happened. What's even more sad, it's not just strangers who prey on the elderly, sometimes it's family, friends, people who they trust, or at least they think they should be trusting. Our next guest has been a police officer in the region of Peel since 1986. During that time, she has moved throughout the department in many different uniform and plainclothes capacities. In 2006, she was seconded as an academic instructor to the Ontario Police College for 3 years, teaching new recruit officers from around the province. She moved into the Crime Prevention Unit in 2011, where she designed and created a Peel anti-bullying campaign currently circulating in every high school in the region of Peel. In February 2015, she took over as an elder abuse coordinator for the Family Violence Unit of the Peel Police. As such, she is a member of multiple community committees advocating for the prevention of elder abuse, including law enforcement agencies Protecting Seniors Committee, the Peel Elder Abuse Prevention Network, and the Making of Our Seniors Matter Committee. She is a Project Lifesaver Police Coordinator and is the lead instructor for training officers as electronic operators. She also coordinates the Vulnerable Persons Registry in Peel. In October, she will have completed 30 years as a police officer in the region of Peel. Please welcome Detective Yvetter Logan. Welcome to the show, Yvette.
Thanks for having me.
So, this is a tough topic to discuss.
Yes, it is.
You know, if we have parents, it makes it even that much more difficult because we can't be there all the time to protect them. So can you define what elder abuse really falls into a category of the law?
Well, we describe it, we break it down into 5 categories, and there's a lot of different definitions out there depending on who you speak to. From the police perspective, we have physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, neglect, and psychological abuse. In a lot of cases, people don't look at psychological abuse as being a criminal offense, and in most cases it's not. So there is an apprehension on the public to report these type of incidences. But the reason why we keep psychological abuse as part of our definition is because in a lot of cases of psychological abuse, especially when we start talking about things like isolation, withdrawing of privileges. We've even had cases where seniors have had their telephones taken away from them. Usually when we get into that type of control, there's usually one of the other 4 types of abuse that are taking place. Today, financial abuse is probably the #1 crime that we're seeing amongst seniors. We all have heard about the scams and the frauds that are going on with our seniors, but unfortunately, one of our top crimes of financial abuse is by family members. Sometimes there's intimidation to change wills, to obtain control of finances through power of attorney, which is also a criminal offense, an offense called theft by power of attorney. And there's also the threats of institutionalization if they're not giving finances or giving control of their finances. So we see a lot of these crimes going unreported because the culprits are family members, and there's a lot of fear on the point of the seniors to come forward with these types of crimes.
Particularly if they're relying on that family member to facilitate their care, their errands. They feel that they have a need for that individual. So do the individuals themselves see themselves as victims of these individuals?
Sometimes they do. In a lot of cases, and I've actually had some seniors say to me that they would rather tolerate the abuse than to be put into an institution. And that's why a lot of these cases are going unreported. We refer to it as the silent crime, because there's so much of it going on out there that you and I don't even know about because it's not being reported. And especially in the region of Peel with the diverse community that we have here, we have a lot of religions and cultures that believe in taking care of the seniors themselves in their homes. In some cases, there's elements where they need assistance, and there is a lot of social services available to assist them, but because of their beliefs and their backgrounds, and sometimes even a fear of what community services might do, and definitely a fear of the police, they won't reach out and ask for the help. So sometimes these cases of neglect especially, it's not intentional neglect. It's just because the person themselves is not either getting the resources they need to assist them, or they don't know any better how to care for this senior that has potentially special needs and could be a vulnerable person.
So how does the law distinguish between somebody who makes a decision for someone else under the category of a power of attorney versus when it crosses the line to abuse? How do we distinguish the two?
Well, power of attorney is a designation given to someone to care. At the end of the day, it's to care for that senior, whether it's power of attorney for finances or whether it's power of attorney for their medical needs and their well-being. It's all about the care of the senior. So if you're dealing with someone's finances and you're paying for their care, you're obviously it's within the legal realm of your designation. But when you start using that money for your own personal gain or without the permission of the person, we have a tendency to think that when power of attorney kicks in, that the senior person is not able to make any decisions for themselves. And it all falls down under a category called capacity. It's a whole different topic in itself. But the person, just because they are not able to make financial decisions for themselves, does not mean that they don't have the capacity to make decisions for their own well-being, and vice versa. So a lot of times people take advantage of their position as power of attorney and say, I am power of attorney, that person is not able to make these decisions, so I'm going to use this money for whatever I see fit. That actually falls under a category called theft by power of attorney. It's an offense that's not well known by the community, but it is certainly one that's coming to the surface quite often these days.
Do you get a lot of reports, police reports on such matters?
The majority of the reports we're getting when it comes to theft by power of attorney, unfortunately, seems to be coming from places like nursing homes, where the bill is not being paid all of a sudden. The person doesn't have the capacity to understand how that works, and usually there's a power of attorney that should be paying for the bills for the person's care, and they're not. We're also getting reports from financial advisors, bank managers that are seeing large sums of money all of a sudden being withdrawn from a senior's bank account, which was not normal. It didn't fall under their normal realm of their normal banking. So those are kind of triggers that we're seeing now. We don't often get calls from the senior themselves, because usually when a power of attorney for finances has kicked in, capacity is often an issue.
So I know the show is only so much length and we have so much to discuss, but we also wanted to cover some of the scams that's out there, whether it be telephone, door-to-door. What's your advice, and what are the most common scams out there that the police is aware?
The CRA scam is still out there. I think, unfortunately, because it is still being successful. And if I have to give someone advice, no one is ever going to demand that you make a payment instantly for anything ever. So if you keep that in mind, that no one is demanding that you send them money, no one is going to call you and say that the police are going to come and arrest you. Another key word to keep in mind is a lot of these scammers are asking for cards, iTunes cards, gift cards. You're sending a payment and a gift card. Let's think about that for a minute. The government will never ask you to pay for your unpaid taxes and gift cards. As soon as someone says to you, don't tell anyone, that should be, the bells and whistles should be going off.
To tell everyone.
Tell everyone, and put the phone down and call as many people as you can, because there's a reason why they're telling you not to do that. No one expects you to do this instantly. The other thing, we're still seeing a lot of online scams. We're still seeing a lot of emails coming through that are pretending to be from banks, saying that we've lost your information, your login information is no longer good. Click here and re-add all your information. Don't do it. Think about it for a second. Have you ever given your email account or address to your bank? because I never have. So how is it they're able to send you an email if you've never given them your email address? So think about that for a second. When you get any emails from anybody, you should look at that and say, how did this person get my email address? And I've been getting emails from Bell saying I need to update my account information. I don't currently have an account with Bell. So you always have to ask yourself, what is this? One of the other scams that's currently come out is people are getting emails being sent to them that'll say, if you no longer want these emails, unsubscribe. As soon as you unsubscribe, there's a potential for now that they can access your computer. So you have to ask yourself, did I ever subscribe to this? Because if you didn't, then you don't need to unsubscribe.
Side on the error, on caution of error.
Always.
Yeah.
Always ask yourself, how legitimate is this? How, and I mean, let's be honest, as we age, we may not always remember these things. Always ask, and you can always call me.
Thank you very much, Detective Logan. I certainly will take your invitation to have you come back, because I'm sure we only scratched the surface.
We did.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back to About Seniors Talk TV. Of course, as we age, we naturally slow down to a safer and wiser pace. As such, some of our senses are all not as sharp as they once were. In fact, our next topic is about a number one thing joked about among friends, husband and wives. We put our hand to our ear and say, speak up. Or we get branded as having selective hearing. However, it's not a joke. Hearing loss is the most common sensory deficit in the elderly, and it is becoming a severe social and health problem, especially in the elderly population. Hearing loss can impair the exchange of information, thus significantly impacting everyday life, causing loneliness, isolation, dependence, and frustration, as well as a communication disorder. Our next guest is an audiologist who completed both his undergraduate and graduate training at the Western University and has spent close to 10 years working in the field. His experience includes scientific research at the prestigious National Center for Audiology, conducting clinical field trials, and publishing data. He has also worked in a variety of clinical settings, including both hospitals and private clinics. He is working in as the audiology manager for the Hearing Solutions. Please welcome Andreas Seelisch. Welcome to the show, Andre.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, is it true that as we age, our hearing just becomes worse and worse, or is that a joke as I put it?
No, it's true. As you said, it's the most common chronic ailment affecting our population. It's happening whether we like it or not at a very, very young age, and our hearing starts to decline already after we're out of our 20s. And it doesn't start affecting speech areas until we're into later adulthood. But it's extremely common, 15% of the population roughly.
So with our eyes, we know that every 2 years OHIP covers a vision test to determine the acuity. What's your recommendation for hearing tests?
Once we get to the age of 60, we're recommending annual checks of your hearing as well. And because around that age, the prevalence of hearing loss doubles, and so it's around 30% of the population. And so that's a good cue for people to start getting baseline checks and seeing what's going on. Because, worst case scenario, people might not like the news we tell them, but it doesn't change what's happening. And so it's better to know, and from that point, then you can manage it.
And what are some of the probable causes of such a prevalent high number? I mean, people in their 60s are relatively young.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the causes for such prevalence?
Most common cause is age, whether we like it or not. It's one of the things that declines, and there's not much we can do to stop that. Genetics is a huge factor, and it's why you can get two people the same age, and one of those individuals will suffer hearing loss, while the other individual seems to be more protected against that. Following that, noise is the next biggest.
So what happens to our body as we age that starts to impact our hearing?
So most of the mechanical structures in the ear, and we have our outer ear and the eardrum, which we're very familiar with, they're fine and they don't suffer a whole lot of damage due to natural causes like aging or genetics. But some of the hair fibers or nerves that are inside the cochlea here, it's a little tiny bone structure about the size of your pinky nail. There's thousands of nerve fibers in there, and those are what are deteriorating.
Okay, and how is that mitigated?
Well, we can't undo that. I wish I had a magic pill. I'd be a really popular guy if I could say, you know, there's a magic pill to undo it. But these types of nerve-related hearing losses, we can't prevent them except when it's noise exposure, and we can't undo them. And so not being able to stop it from happening, the best thing we can do is try and compensate for it. And that's why for most people with a sensory neural hearing loss, we're talking about hearing aids or amplification.
Okay, and so hearing aids is a pretty common term. Everybody knows what it is.
Sure.
So it aids the hearing, but how does it really work? Because there's different types of hearing aids. And after wearing a hearing aid, do you become dependent on it? Or is that just a perception because even though we're wearing a hearing aid, our hearing progressively gets worse and worse? So can you sort of decipher that theory?
Yeah, they're great questions. A lot of people fear that, and so they're worried that they're going to become dependent on the hearing aids, but it's not true. All the evidence suggests the opposite, that our brain needs stimulation, it needs nourishment. And so wearing the hearing aid is actually good for us. It's giving information to the brain, it's giving nourishment to the brain, and that keeps it healthier and stronger longer. Whereas if we don't do something about it, what ends up happening is we rely on coping mechanism, using lip reading, using our knowledge of the language, of the subject, and things like that. And doing that uses up some of our mental resources. And we have a limited amount of resources up there, whether we like it or not. And so constantly chewing them up, using them up to hear better, means they're not available for doing things like storing memories or for multitasking or decision making. And that's why hearing loss is linked with a whole bunch of other deficits, cognitive decline and dementia and a lot of other concerns. So it's not just about your hearing, it's also about your brain and your health.
Or in my case, I just make up what I think I heard.
Sure. We get a lot of this instead of should have done that, right, and get ourselves into trouble.
So hearing aids have also come a long way, and I know you have a few samples that perhaps you want to show some of our viewers how small they are and how you can wear them without being detected, because some individuals are also wary that they don't want to be labeled as, you know, having a hearing deficiency. So you have some devices there. You want to share with us how they work?
For sure. I mean, you mentioned cosmetics. So one of the biggest concerns that people have is cosmetics, especially as hearing aids are becoming more and more common among younger adults. So we're talking about baby boomers. These are individuals that still want to live the life they want to do, and it's not about not being able to get by in life, it's about living the best version of their life they can. And so for a lot of these individuals, they're wanting something that's you know, discreet. So there's two styles. One of those would be a very, very small custom-made device. We're talking about something that's about the size of a blueberry, roughly. It's molded into the shape of your ear, but we're wanting to have something that's small enough that it's not visible. And so I can put this in my ear to show you, because this one is molded for me. And so if I put that in there and get it snugly into place, there's not really anything to see. It's shadowed. It's deep enough in the canal that you're really not gonna see it. And it's also taking advantage of the shape of our ear, because our ears are shaped like this on purpose, and it helps collect sound from in front and filter out some of the sounds from behind. And so this type of design is very appealing when people are looking for something discreet.
Okay. So hearing aids are relatively expensive, though. How are they covered?
So unfortunately, hearing aids are expensive. Biggest factor in that is constant research. The nice thing about that is it means technology is improving. We're fortunate in Ontario. Most provinces don't have any sort of funding, but in Ontario we have $500 of funding per year, so a total of $1,000, and that helps cover some of the costs associated with hearing aids. Beyond that, there are other options for people like veterans, for example, people with noise-induced hearing losses. We can look at other options, some things like workman's compensation, WSIB. For people in hardship cases, there's sometimes coverage through ODSP or some other funding agencies. We're very motivated to try and find a solution for people.
I'm sure that in some cases, some of the symptoms that they come to you with is not internal ear damage. Some of it could be external. What are some of those external factors that could be mitigated without having to really be a hearing issue and requiring mitigation from a hearing aid?
Sure.
What are some of those?
So when we're not talking about nerve-related hearing losses, we're talking about sort of mechanical problems. And so things like the eardrum, for example, let's say somebody got a punch in the ear or a big pressure change, you could have your eardrum burst, and that would cause some hearing loss. In most of those cases, the eardrum will heal spontaneously, but if not, there are surgeries where you can have a tympanoplasty, basically where they do a patch over the eardrum to help it heal. So that's one example. middle ear infections. A lot of times people call those inner ear infections, but it's really an infection behind the eardrum, but before the nerve center. That's another thing that can be helped with things like tubes in the ear or medications, and those are, again, one of the cases where we don't have to resort to a solution like a hearing aid.
So as we age, is an accumulation of wax in the ear canal, does it get worse as we age, or is consistently the same throughout our lives?
For most people, it's the same. Some people, as their skin properties change, the skin is becoming less elastic and it's not migrating out of the ear as well. That's how our body's actually taking care of wax. The eardrum grows outwards, and it goes like a very, very slow conveyor belt, and it moves wax and dirt and dust and anything that doesn't belong in the ear out on its own. And so for most people, I say you don't have to do anything about wax. It'll manage itself. That being said, some people end up with what we would call like a traffic jam, where some wax is built up either at a bend or turn in the ear canal, and so if it does that, sometimes it needs some help, and a professional such as myself could have that removed in the clinic for you.
Okay. So if people wanted to contact you to perhaps book an appointment, how would they do that?
So we have lots of clinics. We have 20 clinics around the GTA and in the Ottawa area as well. Just give us a shout. You can check us out on the internet. Lots and lots of resources. Some clinics charge for an initial assessment. We don't want to discourage. People find enough reasons not to come in, and so we really want people to have the information, even if it's just a baseline, to come in, see what's going on, and take care of it if appropriate.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing some wonderful information with our viewers. Thanks so much.
It's my pleasure being here. Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back after a short break. Thank you for watching another episode of About Seniors Talk TV. I'd like to thank my guests, Constable Logan of Peel Regional Police and Andreas Seelisch from Hearing Solutions, for sharing their knowledge and experience with us. If you want to learn more about these topics, you can visit www.peelpolice.on.ca and learn more about hearing solutions at www.hearingsolutions.ca. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover on this show, write to me, Oliveira at nrcareservices.com. Thanks for watching.